In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to import range data from one Google Sheet over into another Google Sheet using Google App Scripts, possibly with a time trigger so it will occur on a daily basis or hourly basis. So why would you want to do this instead of using perhaps something like import range, for example? Well, import range has a limitation on how much data you can import from one sheet into another before it starts to break down. Using Google Apps Scripts can speed this process up, and it can also allow you to import ranges from multiple sources into one sheet or multiple sources from one set of sheets into other sets of sheets. So let's get cracking with our example of how to import a set of range values from our Google Sheet here into another. There's a link to this sheet in the description below so you can play along. So first things first, we'll create a Google Sheet, but you could do this with an existing Google Sheet as well. So let's go to File, New, and Spreadsheet. You can create a Google App Script that is attached to your documents, like your Google Sheet, or you can do it independently. Now, if you've got multiple sheets going from one location to another, perhaps an independent Google App Script might be your best approach. But in the case of this, we have one core master Google Sheet, which is our project task sheet, and we're going to put it into this child spreadsheet here. So why am I putting in this one instead of this child sheet? Well, perhaps I want to use this child sheet just so my editors can edit certain parts of the sheet or the sheet tabs, but I don't want them to see the code. So I can keep the code safely in this sheet, which they don't have access to, but they can still work in this sheet over here. So first things first, let's just make this easy to understand and change the title of our child sheet to destination. And hit tab to get out. And let's head back to our parent sheet and let's go to extensions here and app scripts. Now this will open up your Google App Scripts IDE. It might have a white background. In this case, I've used the black background. So it comes with this standard My Functions function. Let's just change the name to something a bit more fun, and we'll call it runsies. And we're going to create two functions here. The first one is going to contain all the data from that we need to use from our source and destination Google Sheets. And then we're going to create another function that's going to run the process of copying the range values from the master Google Sheet and paste them into the destination Google Sheet. And let's go down and create our import range function, and let's call that function import range. And we'll close that off, put a little colon there, nice and neat and tidy. We want our import range to take 4 values. So the first one is going to be the source ID, and that's going to be the ID of this parent value here. And then we want the source range, and that's going to be this range value here. So we want to copy these values across to here and then all the way down to the bottom for updating. Okay, so that's our source range. And next we want our destination ID. And that's going to be over here in our destination ID. And then we just want the starting destination range here. So that's going to, so we'll call that destination range start. Cool. So we've got our 4 parameters for our import range function. Let's call that inside this runsies function, and we'll call import range and open up the braces to put in our arguments. The first one is the source ID, and that's going to be this. So an ID for your spreadsheet is going to always be after this little \d, and it's going to go from the \d all the way up to the next backslash. So we're going to select that, hit Control C to copy, go back over to our code, hit, and then put that in double quotation marks, and we hit Control V to paste, and let's just put that on a new line to make it tidy. Lovely, good stuff, and put a semicolon there. And so that's our first parameter or first argument. Our next argument is going to be the source range, the range we want to grab our stuff from. So that's going to be, let me just shoot back up to the top. That's going to be in the task list Google Sheet from A2 all the way to G. And because this thing will update regularly, we want to keep that G open. So one approach to importing range is actually using the same format you're using using in Google Sheets by saying the sheet name, an exclamation mark, and then the range as a alphabetical column, and then the rows as a number. So let's put that one in. So that's going to be task list, and then we'll put in an exclamation mark, and we'll go A2 through to G. And we'll add a comma. So our next one is going to be our destination ID, and that's gathered the same way as we got our source ID. So let's head over to the destination Google Sheet and select that. So from these two backslash points, oh, I missed the one here. I'm going to hold Shift to grab it, Control C to copy, back over, in double quotation marks, hit Control V to paste, and we're done. Now we'll hit comma again. And the last thing we need is the source range start. So we've got down here, we're in sheet 1. Let's be lazy and we'll keep that as sheet 1. And we could put this straight in here in this A1, but sometimes you want to put it in a different place because you've got other formulas or data in there that you're comparing against. So let's just put this in B2 to show that we can do it. And let's head back over. So we know B2, so we're going to sheet 1 exclamation mark B2 for our start location for our destination. So let's go sheet 1. Oh, sheet 1 exclamation mark B2, and there's our start location. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters here, 4 arguments here for our 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters. Great. And we can see a little error squiggly line down the bottom here. It's because I haven't closed the function, so I'm going to backslash a bit and put in some curly braces and hit colon to close that off. Cool, let's Control S to save so we don't lose that. And now let's head over to our function, so our import range function. So we have to gather certain bits of information before we can copy and paste it over. So what we're going to use for this is the Spreadsheet app API. So I'm going to let's create a variable that won't change using const, and we'll call this source SS for spreadsheet equals, and then we'll call the Spreadsheet app API. Hit tab, and then we want to open by ID. So this is going to be a source spreadsheet that we're opening by ID. So open by ID, which is just here, and open up the braces here. And you can directly put in the ID, but that's not very reusable. So we're just going to call this source ID here. So I'm just going to double click it, copy, Control C, Control V to paste. Nice. And hit colon and go to the next one. So now that we've got our source spreadsheet all set up and ready to go, we can go const and we can go source range, and we'll shorthand this to RNG for range, and equals. And now we can call the source spreadsheet, and we're going to get the range. So we're going to use the get range method here. Cool. And that get range method means we can use this A1 notation to get the range of this source data. And we've stored that in our second parameter, source range. So let's just double click that, hit Control C and Control V to paste it in. Great. So the next thing we need to get is our source values once we've got the range. So we can go const source vals equals, and then we can call the source range RNG, and then we can say get vals or values. Great, let's see if we've made any mistakes, and we can do a quick console log. See if we've made any errors here. Let's put in this source values. If you haven't run the code yet, we'll also get a request for authorization of the Google Spreadsheet scopes. So let's hit run. Authorization required, great. Let's review permissions. Yeah, let's click on me. Oh no, big scary warning. Let's click on advanced because we are elite Google Apps Script users, and go to our range. And now we want to read these scopes, and you can see that we're going to edit and delete all our Google spreadsheets. Yes, that's what we want to do. So let's give that permission. And now we've got our scopes together. And now you can see in our log here that we have all the values that we have pulled from this sheet, which is excellent. Cool. Great. So let's get rid of that console log. So now we've got all our source data, we need to set up our destination sheet. So we need to do the same thing again for destination. So we'll go const and then destination spreadsheet, and we'll invoke the spreadsheet app class again. And open by ID. And now we can use this third argument here for a destination ID and pop that in. So I've just selected, double click, copy, Control C, Control V to paste, then a semicolon, and then down. Sweet, and now we've got our destination start range we want to incorporate. We want to get that range. So let's use this common range value to find the start cell for a sheet. So let's get cracking. So we'll go const, and we'll call this dest for short, start range. We'll go equals, and let's use the destination spreadsheet. And now we'll go get range. And we'll use this A1 notation to get this spreadsheet ID, which we've plonked in our last argument here. And we'll go Control C and Control V. Cool. So first we need to find the destination sheet. So that's going to be this sheet 1 here. And let's go dest sheet equals destination spreadsheet. So this one here. And then we'll go get sheet by name. Now we have to figure out what the name is, and we can do that by getting the destination start range, and then from there we go get sheet. So it allows us to get the sheet. So now once you're in the start range, you're into the sheet now, into this location. From here the spreadsheet app class can find the name using the get name method. Okay, so let's close it off with a semicolon and hit save. Cool. So now that we have all this, our first task before we paste everything in is to clear it, because we're going to do a full update on this sheet. Okay, so now we can go dest sheet dot clear. Now as you can see, it says clears the sheet of content and formatting information. Because we don't have any other data on the sheet, running a full clear is okay, because there's nothing else on there that we need to keep. So we're going to go destination sheet and then clear. And now our next task is to create a range that contains all the task list data from A2 to G. Now we need to do this a little bit differently, so let's follow along and I'll explain it as we go. So const dest range, and we'll go equals dest sheet, and we're going to use this dest sheet to get the range of that sheet. And let's just open that up and let's hit enter, because we've got a couple of arguments that we need to put in. So this time around, our get range is going to take numerical values. The first one is going to be the start row number, followed by the start column number, and then as a number, how many rows down, and as a number, how many columns across. So we can get the destination start row by using this destination start range. So we'll go dest start range, and we'll go get row, and that will get us our row number. Oh, not semicolon, then comma, and now we can do the same for our column. So we can go dest start range and get column for our get column method. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, let's click off here so we can see. The next thing we need to do is to get the length in rows and then the column in rows. Now, if we have a look at our execution log, you can see that the result of our source vals is a two-dimensional array, where the outer array is in rows and then the inner row is each of the columns. So if we want to count how deep it is in rows, we can get the length of this outer array. So let's just move that down, and we can go source, vowels, and then all we have to do is ask for the length. And now to get the number of columns, we can do the same here, and that's going to be the inner array of this two-dimensional array. So the number of columns is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can grab this first inner array and grab the length of it. So we'll go source vowels again, and this time we're going to go 0 to get that first inner array, and we're going to grab the length of it. Done. Cool. So now we have our start row, our start column, our row depth, and our column width. Now these have to be identical to what we're going to bring in from our source values. So now to paste it over, all we're going to do is use the dest range, and this time instead of get values like we got here, we can use set values. And we're going to put in this source vowels. So Control C, and then bring that over, and Control V to paste. Finish it off with a semicolon, and that's our function done. Hit Control S to save. And let's have a quick peek over here and have a look at our data here before we run it. And I'll hit run and hope there's no errors. And now you can see that our data has been pasted in here. So if we make any changes to what's going on in here, so if I change the header here to tasks, as in plural, and then run our script again, you can see tasks plural has changed. So any changes you make here will be updated. So if you have more data you want to import from and then into your spreadsheet or into another spreadsheet, for example, all you need to now do is to call this import range function again with some new parameters. So for example, if I go in here, I type in import range and open up the braces, I can go enter, and now I can paste in a new source Google Sheets, and then a new sheet tab range, and then a new destination Google Sheet ID, and then a new destination range start location. And then after this import range has grabbed the data and pasted it in, it will go and grab the data for the next import range set, and then paste it into the new location. Done. Let's keep it to 1 for now. So imagine we want to update this destination sheet on a daily basis. So let's go back to our Google Sheet and let's head over to triggers. Here we can add a new trigger and then select the function we want to run. Here we can use the runsies function because that has our ranges in it. And then we want to choose our deployment, so keep that as head, it's not going to be able to change. And then we want to select our event source. So here we're going to make it time driven. And we could use an hour timer on every hour, but we won't be greedy here. Let's just put it on a daily timer. And we want it to occur at midnight when no one hopefully is at work. Let's hit save. And now we can see our time trigger here. If you made a mistake, you can always go in here and look at the details or delete the trigger. But we're all done, so we can head back to our script. And now, on a daily basis between midnight and 1 a.m., runsies will run, grabbing this import range function and running the import range function, copying the task list data, and then pasting it into B2 of your sheet 1 of your destination sheet. So this is just a simple way of copying and pasting a whole bunch of data from one location into another. Perhaps you just want to append data, or perhaps you even want to regularly include the formatting of the data as well, for example, borders or background colors. or even just copy over the formulas. In the next tutorial, I'll cover how to add some formatting options to this app script that we created. And then in following tutorials, we'll talk about how to filter out empty spaces or just to append data in different ways. So if you liked the tutorial, please click the like button. And if you want to see more on this topic, please subscribe so you can get a notification of when the next tutorial out on this subject is. Until next time.